Extract Brewing? Me? Yep, I've got my reasons. Stick around and I'll tell you why. Hey everyone, welcome back. Larry here again to share with you a recent exchange of pace with my brewing hobby, right? Recently I brewed a batch of beer using extract instead of all grain. First time I've done it in, well, over a dozen years, maybe closer to 15. I can't forget, it was like the late 2000s when I switched over from extract brewing. When I started in 2000, by the way, I did that for several years, and I switched over to all grain brewing in around 2008 or 9, I imagine. I have to go back and look at my notes. But since then, I haven't looked back. I've been doing all grain ever since because I had my reasons from moving from extract to all grain. For one, I wanted to get more into the hobby, but also I was under the impression that my beer quality would get better, which actually it did. Now in hindsight, I don't know if that was just purely from moving from extract to all grain, or it was because I went from bottling to kegging at around the same time, as well as experience and just knowledge, brewing more often, knowing more about the process and getting better at it. I can't go back and tell you for sure which one it was, but that was one of my goals, was to get out of extract brewing. So going back to 2012, when I posted my first video on YouTube over 10 years ago now, or about 10 years ago now, I've only been doing all grain videos. So you probably have never seen me do an extract beer on my channel. So this is a first for me, but I figured after 21 years now of brewing, I figured it was time to revisit a old technique that I have long ago abandoned, just to give it a shot. Try it out, and I actually have a more pragmatic reason for it too. So just to let you know, this is the beer that I actually brewed. It's an English dark mild ale, right? And the reason why I did this is because it's wintertime here where I live, and I brew in my garage where I don't have water supply or drainage in the wintertime, especially because my hoses are put away from my water supply. I don't want to dump wastewater and wash water out in my driveway or my grass, where it will probably kill the grass once the snow thaws. That is later, right? So I've been doing this for years, brewing in the winter anyway, but that would always require me to take out buckets of water from my kitchen sink out to the garage and take the wastewater from my garage and bring it back to my sink and dump it in the house. That was a pain in the butt, although the love of the hobby, still did it anyway for a long time. But this time was different. This time I said, no, I'm changing things for the better, right? So I said, I'm going to brew an extract batch in my house on my kitchen stove for the first time since the late 2000s. It's been a long time, right? And as part of the nostalgia, or the nostalgic experience of being 20 plus years of brewing, I wanted to go back and actually brew a batch similar to what I did back then, just to get the experience and to see what the taste difference was like, because it's been a long time since I had one of my extract brews, and I know it's almost night and day, the quality difference I got from moving to all grain versus extract. So I was kind of curious, if I brewed an extract batch today, would I still get the same kind of beer or a better beer or not? So that was kind of a self-challenge. I challenged myself to do that. But I also wanted to brew in a similar fashion to how I did back then. So that included not just brewing on my stove with extract, but also to use a smaller pot. Because back when I started doing extract brewing, I was using like a really skinny 3-gallon stainless steel stock pot. It was not even designed for this, right? So what I was doing for 5-gallon batches was brewing about 2.5 gallons of very high gravity wort and diluting that in the fermenter after I chilled it with distilled water to top it up to like 5 gallons. And that worked okay, but I was always concerned about that water supply. I mean, unless you boil it and cool it, it's not really sanitized, really, right? It makes me wonder if that was going to be causing off flavors and things over the years. And maybe that was one of the reasons why my earlier beers didn't taste as good as they do today. I don't know. Maybe. So more about the taste in a minute, but first I want to finish talk about the process. So what I decided to do was to brew this English dark mild ale, and I did it on my stove. And what I used to do also early on, I used dry malt extract most of the time. I sometimes use liquid malt extract, but I preferred the dry only because it was easier to use. I didn't have to heat up the cans of liquid malt and to get all that syrup out of there because it would cling to the inside of the can, right? I thought that was wasteful. But I also used partial mash mashing, right? So you would use the extract as like your base gravity, but you'd also would use a pound or two of a specialty grain, right, to add more complexity, flavor, body, some crystal malts or whatever there, right? So I use that approach again. So not only did I do malt extract, I did a partial mash extract batch using a concentrated wort boil and diluting that later on with just water to top up the fermenter. One thing I didn't do, I used to do early on, of course, when you first start getting into brewing, if you're doing extract, you probably don't have a chiller, which I didn't initially either. So I used my sink and ice water, and it took hours to chill even that small amount down. I said, I'm not doing that. I have a number of chillers, right? So I just went ahead and used the chiller. One of the chillers I have that fit into my smaller pot. Now, the pot I use in this video for this batch is not the same 3-gallon pot I originally used. I think this one was like a 4-gallon pot, a little bit bigger, right? But still a concentrated wort boil. And that was still a fair amount of work to cool down. So I used my jaded Scylla, put the chiller, of course, in the pot, fit fine, and I used a 5-gallon bucket with a submersible utility pump to pump the water through to the chiller and out into my sink to drain. I put a little bit of ice water in there too to help to speed it up. But really, that chiller, I mean, it chills pretty fast normally. It's 5-6 minutes or more for a 5 or 10-gallon batch of beer on our brew days, right? We've done this before, this little time test. Then I hooked it up and turned on the pump. It couldn't have been more than a minute and a half or two later. All of a sudden, my temperature was already below 80 degrees and hitting close to 70 already. So, old brewing styles with concentrated wort boiling, extract brewing, all that stuff, fine. But the chilling still is worth using a modern chiller. I didn't want to go back to that old day of using the sink and ice water bath method, right? So how did it turn out? Well, I wish I had an all grain version, which I now in hindsight have brewed side by side with, because I don't have a style to compare against. English dark mild is not a popular beer style here in the U.S. Right? You can't really find it on the store shelf, so you have to brew it yourself, which is one of the reasons why I chose this style. But just to give it a taste, being the style is a very low gravity. I think it's like 3% alcohol by volume, very almost very thin. Very light. That's the intent. It's a mild ale, right? Counteract my large, heavy bourbon stout that I brewed before this, right? So I have a very heavy, high alcoholic, thick beer and a much thinner, low alcoholic thin beer to help balance all that out here this winter. So I can remember my name after a few of the bourbon stouts. I put a couple of these in there, but in between. But I digress. But the flavor and quality are about along the lines of what I used to remember about it. It's good. It's decent. Is it a beer I want to can and send the people to taste as an example of how good I am at brewing? No, this is just a household brand now that's going to be consumed probably here amongst me and friends and family over the next number of weeks here. I may look into why extract brews, at least in my house, turn out the way they do differently than the all grains. I mean, because there's people who brew extract and make great beers. And these beers was fine. I wouldn't call it great. I do wonder if I did it with all grain, how much better, if any, it would be than it is now. My thoughts on it might be that it's the concentrated wort boil and the dilution with non-boiled water. Maybe there was some flavor contribution there from the top-up water. Maybe it's lacking in minerals because I used distilled water with extract, because that's what I was taught when I started extract brewing. That's what all the books that I had at the time said to do. All the people who taught me about this, and it's the extracts already have the minerals in them from the brewing water used to create them in the first place. Made sense to me. Maybe there's some mineral adjustments though that I can continue to make, but with extract brewing, you never know what minerals are in the extract that you're using, so you don't really know what to add the first time you use it, at least. And now I might add some calcium. Maybe I might add something to maybe give it better water chemistry. But I really don't know what the root cause of why my extract beers always seem to taste average, not outstanding. And we all want outstanding beers, right? But it's not going to dissuade me. I'm still going to continue to try extracts as long as it's convenient for me to do in the wintertime as opposed to all grain. Do I prefer all grain? Of course, again, but there's reasons why I can't, especially in the wintertime, or maybe I'm in a hurry. Maybe I want to shave a couple hours off my brew day or more, right? I have to learn more about it. If you have any tips and advice, if you've been a long-time extract brewer and have brewed all grain and know any tricks and secrets to make the extract beers taste more like a good all grain beer, let me know in the comments down below. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. So thanks for your time. Thanks for hanging out for several minutes, watching me rant about extract brewing and versus all grain, and telling you about my average beer. Which is not usual, right? It's fine, but not great. All right. Thanks for watching. Talk to y'all next time.